Hello, my name is Peter Parfit. Welcome to the new Brit workshop. I want to clear up a few points about drilling with the bits and pieces associated with the Parf Guide system. I'm going to cover both the 3mm drilling and also the 20mm drilling. And at the same time, I'm going to introduce you to a brand new product which Axminster have just released, and it is their dust port for the Parf Guide system, and they call it the Parf Dust Port. Now what I've got set up here is a rectangular piece of MDF, and it is the Medite moisture resistant, which I really do like for custom bench tops and so on. And it's representative, it's not the actual size of a bench top. I've got it mounted on a couple of little pieces of odd ends of MDF, and the reason for that is that I don't want to damage the top of this bench top too much with lots of holes, but also there's a point I want to make about drilling with the 20mm drill bit in a minute. But first of all, let me just take you through a couple of points about 3mm drilling. First of all, one obviously positions the Parf stick on the surface that you're about to drill, and you would probably clamp this in place. I'm not going to clamp it now. And then one would start with the first drill hole. And I'd like you to note that I'm using this action of drilling a bit, coming out, letting the debris come out and then back in again. And then when I've finished, if there's any debris, I try and get rid of it. If you don't clear the debris, it starts to build up on the drill bit itself and then starts to make it very tight in the 3mm drill guide, which you don't want. And what you should do after each go with a 3mm drill is to just knock off that debris. And one way you can do that is to rub it against the surface, like the edge of your MDF, or even, dare I say, against the edge of the 3mm guide. I've done my first drill in this pretend process, and I'm now just going to put a pin through. Now, when you put the pin in, there is no need to push it all the way down. That's not needed at all. And the reason is that the accuracy is caused by the interface between the wood that you're using for your bench top and the Parf stick. And there's only a small amount of the pin that actually comes into play to guarantee that that's accurate. So I positioned my first pin, and ordinarily one would now clamp this in place. I'm not going to do it as an expedient now, but I'm just going to go out drilling again. And again, note, I'm clearing the debris. Now, when you've finished making all of your 3mm holes in your bench top, we then switch over to start using the 20mm guide block. Now, with the new 20mm guide block, it's got oil impregnated bearings, and so there's no need now to put oil on the shaft of the 20mm cutter. Now I want you to look closely at the end of the 20mm bit. There is a spike here, and that 3mm spike will follow through the 3mm holes that we've already drilled in the bench top. Now it's really important when one is using this and going through a 3mm hole that at the end that this spike can continue in fresh air. If you had a block of wood underneath, like so, then this spike would be pushing against a solid lump, and it has no cutting capacity whatsoever, this spike, and so it would make the final few millimeters of the drilling very difficult indeed. So we want to have clear space underneath where you're drilling. Now, if I'm creating a new MFT top, then what I do is I put my blank into the frame of the MFT3, and that then allows me to drill not only my 3mm holes straight through, but then the follow-up of the 20mm holes without anything underneath, so that the 20mm cutter comes through nice and cleanly. So that's not a bad approach. If you're doing a much bigger bench top, then you have to find some other means of creating a bit of fresh air underneath what you're doing. Now, before I use the guide block with the 20mm cutter. I want to show you what happens when there's no guide block there, and I want you to look carefully at the spoil that comes out as I drill into this. Now I'm going to do my best to make sure that I'm doing this in an upright fashion, and just look at the amount of debris that gets kicked up. There's a lot of this stuff coming out. Now when you're doing this, you really do need to collect this, because when it's tucked underneath the guide block, all these larger pieces, and there's lots of them around, all clump together and start to clog the works up. So you need to have some form of extraction. Right, so we'll now move on and use the guide block. In goes the cutter. I'm now going to put the stop collar on. And this means that should I release the cutter from the drill, then it won't accidentally fall onto the floor below. And now I'm going to position my guide block, and I find the easiest way is to get the tip of the cutter started in the hole just by pressing it down. And you feel it's there, and then you locate your two 3mm pins. And now that block actually is rock solid in this piece of material. I'm now going to do a cut without any form of extraction. I want you to see just how much debris gets clogged up in here. Well, you can see that's actually quite a lot of material, and if I carefully remove this and lift this out, you can perhaps see how it's all clogged up around the shaft here. Now we've got to stop that from happening, and the best way is to have some form of extraction aid associated with this process. Now just before I go any further, let me draw your attention to the underside. The underside will be nice and clean, well certainly clean enough for the type of work that we're doing, but you often get this final piece that gets cut, and it's a little disc of the material, of the MDF, and sometimes that gets stuck on the end of the cutter. If that happens when you move on to the next hole, you have to make sure that that is removed, otherwise it tends to stop the drilling action from taking place. Now I want to show you now the UJK Parf Dust Port. This one has been sent to me from Axminster. It's brand new, they've only just gone on the shelves, and I have had a play with a prototype. Now attaching it to the guide block is very simple. First of all, you can have it attached from one side or the other. It makes no difference whatsoever. It's whichever is more convenient for you. Now I'm going to take the dust port, and these two lugs I'm going to just push them apart very slightly as I get it set up on the 20mm guide block, and there it is in place. And you can see it's nicely clicked in. It's seated down here, so it's flat there, and when it's on a surface now, you can see that there's no gap underneath there. Now removing it is the reverse process. You pull outwards evenly on the two lugs and then pull it backwards, like so. Right, we're going to now try it and do a bit of drilling, and I'll show you the technique that should be employed when you're using the dust port. I'm going to drill a hole just here. I've got my spike roughly in the hole there, one pin, and then the other pin. I've got fresh air underneath. I'm now going to connect my dust extractor. Now this is a Festool 27mm hose, and that will push in there and stay in there quite nicely. I'm now going to start my extractor, and I'm now going to drill the hole. As I drill, I want you to see the technique that I use. Because I don't want those great big long continuous fibrous strands developing, I'm going to cut down a bit and raise it, cut down a bit and raise it, and so on. So just watch my technique as I go through this. Down a bit, up, down, up, down, up, down. And that's that done. And you can see there is no debris underneath whatsoever. So if you follow that technique, you will keep the drill, cutter, shaft clear of debris. If you see any debris accumulating here, then make sure you get rid of it. And lo and behold, underneath here we've got another one of those discs like before. You should, when you've done a complete MFT3 top, end up with 77 of those. Right, I'm now going to do this once more, and this time I've got you close up so you can see what's going on at this port here. And there we have another nice, neat hole. Well, I hope that explanation of drilling techniques with the Parf Guide system and also the demonstration of the new dust port from Axminster will help you. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.